Okay, here we go. It's for algebra. Follow along. Okay, you got 2 or 3 basic things you need to know on this. First one, make sure you have equal signs all the way down. Make sure they're over each other. It makes it simpler. Make sure they stay on top. Nice row like that. So you don't have to worry about it. Second one, it's all about zeros and ones. So we're going to be working on this. You'll see that the zero becomes very important on addition and subtraction. And to get to a 1 will be important in multiplication and division. That's the second thing you need to know. Third one, we're going to know how to write a number. The number 5 is traditionally written like this, but that's not how it should be. The actual number is a 5 plus or minus over 1, and it's decimal 0, 5.0. That's how every number is written. For our purposes, as a kid, we just assumed you weren't going to be doing fractions anytime soon, and we knew you weren't going to be doing decimals, and we worked mostly in positive numbers till we started doing subtraction. So we just wrote the number as a 5, but that's not actually how it is. You have to remember that this is the number because it's going to help you later on, and you're going to need it. It's a plus or a minus. It can be either one. So, oh, that's the school bell. Don't worry about that. So make sure you have those down. I'm just going to continue on here. Let's change colors just to keep it interesting. Fourth one, you need to keep in mind that if you have a 4x or 4 of anything, that means 4 times x or 4 times a. Anytime they're next to each other, it is automatically multiplication. This is multiplication. There is a multiplication here. So if they tend to use dots or they put it right next to each other, this over here is multiplication because they're right next to each other. Anytime you see parentheses, it's multiplication. So make sure you have this down. I say that I used to put dots in here in between so I could see. I move my 5 off, and a circle means multiplication also. If you use a small x, it gets confusing, like over here, because it's multiplication, but they also use x's. Don't ask me which genius came up with that. All right, those are our basics. I'm going to move to the next one. And the order of operations in algebra. You do plus, or addition and subtraction. It should be positive and negative. I would tell you stick to these terms because the rest of them are confusing. Positive and negative. When you do it, positive and negative goes first. After you have combined all like terms, which we can go over later, the second thing you do is whether you're multiplying or division, and that'll go second. I'll make this clear. Oh, I misspelled positive. Okay, so we got that. This is after we've combined all like terms. So after you've combined, and I'll give you an example of that here in a second. After you combine, then you can use multiplication and division. These are just your basic concepts. Nothing will change over the next year So I'm going to give you some examples of these just to give you a little help here. So what I mean by trying to get to 0, 1, so we'll use the example. Okay, so that makes it as simple as it can get. So the ones next to each other are multiplication, so I'm going to wait for those till later. I tend to do this. This is not plus 5, it is a positive 5, and this is a positive 14. Because like we talked before, 14 has a plus sign in it whether we use it or not. I would tell you to use it for now. So to combine like terms, this has an A, I need it, that's what I'm solving for, so I need that to one side. So I need to get rid of everything else. So this stays, and everything else has to get to this side. The equal sign is what algebra is. I mean, that's all about equivalence. So we want equal. I'll do a real bad drawing here. A balance. If you're trying to balance something, this is your equal sign. If you add something over here, you add like a 10-pound weight. To keep it balanced, you have to add a 10-pound weight. So the equal sign is like the balance. That's all we're going to be doing, balancing equations. We have a whole bunch of terms for it, but that's the basic thing that it's doing. Let me erase this. So keep that in your mind that you're balancing at all times, and we could check our answers. So what will get me to a 0? So I'm trying to get to a 0 for this. Well, a positive 5 and a negative 5 gets me to 0. So that's the way I can get rid of it. That's why 0 and 1 are considered like greatest inventions of mankind. If I have a negative 5 on this side, I need to put a negative 5 on this side. So I'll bring down my 14. It keeps going in rows. I bring my 3a, and I write my equal sign again. And I bring my 14, which is a positive, and I bring down my negative 5. Now, since I've got all the a, I only had 1 to one side, and these are all numbers to one side. I can now try to get rid of this, which is a multiplication. So once I've combined all like terms, now I can do my multiplication or division. If they're multiplying, I want to do the opposite. So I want to get rid of the 3, I divide by 3. And a 3 divided by 3 is 1. I'm left with 1a. If I divide it by 3 on this side, I have to divide by 3 on this side. So I do 14 and 5, I get 9. I get it over 3. 3 divided into 9 goes 3 times. And my answer is a is equal to 3. If I want to check this, I'm just going to take a and substitute it. So instead of a here, it's 3. And I should get 3 times 3. This no longer exists. 3 times 3 is 9. Positive 5. And it's going to equal positive 14. And it works out, and that's how I know I'm correct. If it doesn't work out, if I get 8 is equal to 14, it isn't. You messed up. So you need to go back and do it again. I'm going to explain to you a couple things on multiplication and division and the way you need to look at it to make it simpler for yourself. And we'll do that next. Let's go to all right, let's try this one. Make sure you understand these two concepts. 3 over 5 is the same as saying 3 divided by 5. So when you see this fraction symbol, that is a division sign. If you write it like this, 3 divided by 5, it's the same thing. There's no difference in those. So I would encourage you, when you see a fraction, that's what fractions are. That's how we get percentages. So keep that in mind when we do this next part, because you're going to need to know that. So when I ask you to do division, this is what they're doing. If we go back to our 3a, to get rid of that, this is what it really looks like. It's 3, these are equal, 3 over 1 times a. So I separate them, I pull them apart. I pull the 3 to a side, and I pull the a to the side. That's what it's saying. And since a is some kind of number, it's also over 1. So if I multiply 3 times a, I get 3a over 1, which is 3a. Three times 1a is 3a, 1 times 1. So that's what we're doing. That may sound kind of simple, but it will show you what makes it easier for you later on. So I'm going to take the 3a again. I'm going to take the 3 and the a. I'll separate it for now. 3 over 1 times a. So that's what we're saying. So to divide by that is to use the opposite. So I'm going to divide by it, which is going to be, I'm going to divide by 3, which I'm not sure if you're familiar, but if you divide by 3, it turns over. You get the reciprocal. If you're not sure how that works, they should be coming up on that, but I don't have time to explain that now. You just have to take my word for it. That's what you're doing. 3 divided by 3, yes, you can either divide it to ones, or you can go 3 over 3, which is 3 times 3 times 1 is 1. It's going to be 1 times 1a, which is why we get 2a. And that's how I get rid of the 3. Now, since we go like this, we divided. What we divided by was by 1, 3. It's actually going to be divided by 3, but when you have divided by, you switch the operation. I'll have to do that another time. So we get 1a. If I did it on this side, and I have 9 over here, since I divided by 1/3, I'm still multiplying. And I get 9. 9 times 1, 3 times 1, over 3, and I end up with 3. And that's my answer. Make sure you understand this, because this causes a lot of confusion. So I'll use one more example. If I go a over 5 is equal to 2, this is going to cause problems. But what I'm actually saying is it's 1 over 5 multiplied by a equals 2. So to get rid of the 1/5, I multiply by 5 over 1. And once again, that's going to give me 5 over 5, which gets me to my 1. It's 1 times a is 1a is equal to 2. A is equal to 2. So some of these are just brief steps in getting these. It never changes after this. It doesn't matter what I use. So I'll go to the same thing. If I have 0.25b, and I want to get rid of this, I'm multiplying, so I have to divide by 1 over 0.25. Whatever it is I divide by, it's the same. If it's a negative 0.25, it's a negative 0.25. This is only for multiplication and division. Make sure you know that. Do not do that when you're combining like terms where it's just, let's say, plus 4. I'm going to use the opposite for addition, subtraction, or, sorry, positive and negative numbers. If I have a positive 4, I use a negative 4. That's on addition and subtracting problems. And I'm using back and forth with addition and subtraction. It's positive and negative, but I know most people don't use those terms, but it's really just positive. With a positive 4, to get it to a 0, I need a negative 4. On multiplication and division, I need to do the exact same thing. They need to look exactly like to get rid of them. because 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by negative 3 is not 1. It's negative 1. So make sure whatever sign is here, sign's here. The positive stated, it's positive. It doesn't matter how many numbers I put up here. If I put 0.25873 and it's negative, I want to divide by negative 0.25873 because it's going to get me to a 1. So as you notice, I'm constantly trying to get to a 1 or the 0. For negative and positive numbers, I notice this is a problem too. Simplest way to do negative and positive numbers. You get two numbers. Forget their sign. I don't know what sign it is. We're just going to leave it. So what you want to do is you take 8 and you get a negative 5. We'll just use it as that. And you just subtract them. Literally. You're going to get a 3. All you're looking for is which number is bigger and what the sign is in front of it. If it's positive, it's positive. If this is a negative sign, this becomes a negative 3. So we'll give a few examples. Positive 5, negative 3. I box them. I just look at the two numbers and I subtract them and I get 2. 5 is a bigger number. It's a positive 2. Now you just need to go down the sheet and do this a bunch of times. 4, that's a positive 4 and a negative 7. 7 minus 4 is 3. I look for the bigger number, which is 7. It's a negative. Go with the bigger number. All you're going to do is just take the numbers out, subtract the two numbers, and then whatever one's bigger, that's the sign. If you want a more detailed explanation, and I do use this, is so for me, instead of drawing a number line, where we put 1, put negative 1, negative 2, and so on, and I put 1, 2, 3. To make it easier for me, my number line goes down. This is 0, this is negative 1, like you're going down into a hole, 2 feet into the hole, 3 feet, negative 4, because it's negative from ground 0, which is 0. If I'm going up, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and on up. So all I do is if I have two numbers, and it's 3, negative 3, and a positive 2, I start negative 3, and going up is positive, because you're going towards ground, and going down is negative. So I take negative 3, I go up positive 2, I get negative 1. This works the same way. If you take 3 minus 2, you get 1. The bigger number is negative, and you get the same thing. This does help out. I use this a lot, especially if you're having troubles at bigger numbers or whatever, where you're lost at, or if they're giving you 2 or 3 different numbers. So if you have, let's say, a negative 3, positive 2, and a negative 4. I mean, if you can combine like terms, that's fine, which the two negatives are like. But if you can't, I can start at 3, go up 2, go back down, and I get negative 5. If you can combine these two, you get a negative 7 plus 2. It takes a little practice. 7 minus 2 is 5. The negative number is bigger. And I just keep getting the same answer. I would try both of them because it makes it easier. But whichever one you feel most comfortable with, it's no right answer. It's however you get the answer. Make sure that you go to ones and zeros. Make sure all terms are combined. So if you're not getting to these two, this is going to be multiplication and division again. And this is going to be addition and subtraction. Once you get to a 0, there are whole books written on the number 1 and the number 0 as two great inventions of math. I know it sounds obvious to you, like we've always had them, but we didn't. So they make things a lot easier. I'm going to go over one more thing. And I'm just going to give you a few problems here. What happens is when you get a problem in class, just go over it. You just have to write your own little problems that kind of look like it just changed the numbers and lettering. So I'm going to go over lettering, and then I'll give you some problems. The difference between math that you've done is it's concrete. That means it's easy. I got 5 pencils. So that's fairly obvious to you. You can count them off. You can add 3 pencils and 2 pencils. And you can get positive here, pencils. And you can figure that out, hopefully, that's so you have 5 pencils. Once again, we don't put negative, we don't put it over 1, we don't put 5.0, but that's what you have. You have positive 5 pencils. That's concrete. Algebra is very abstract. Go to dictionary.com and look it up. So abstract, it's not going to be like that. We're just going to say 5 of something. I don't know, what do you want to make it? X, I don't know, I don't care. P, A, it's 5 of something. They're not going to tell you. They're going to use the same rules. So if you're not sure, if it takes you a little while to go from here to here, I call what I did cheating. So if they told me 3A, I just make those apples. That's all they're doing. When I taught algebra, I would just start off one time and I just not give them the S, then I would not give them the E, and I'd not give them the E, and by the time we got down to it, it was 3A. But my students all knew it was 3 apples. If you have 2B, and you pick whatever makes you remember, we're on a fruit kick here, it's bananas. So how do I add 3 apples plus 2 bananas? Well, I end up with 5 bananas things. You can't do it. If it's a D, I've got 4D, and I say those are dogs, you can't have 7 apple dogs. You can have 7 corn dogs. I'm sorry about that. But you can't have 7 apple dogs. So this cannot be combined. So in my answer, it'd be 4D plus 3A, and that's it. I can't go any further. Keep it simple. You can't combine 4 dogs. That makes it more concrete. You can't combine apples and dogs. It doesn't work. If I have 4 dogs and I want to add 2 more dogs, then I can get 6. This is combining like terms. These are alike. They're all pencils all the way down. They're all doggies all the way down. These are not all the same. Don't get confused about the lettering. And it does confuse students, and that's why as they get further, what they'll do to you, just to make it interesting if you're not bored enough already, what they're going to do is this. They're going to have 3n plus 4m, and then they're going to really confuse you by adding 2mn. And if you fall for it, you'll be like, well, I got 9 mn's. No, you don't. You have 3 n's. You still have 4m. And this one is completely different. Those are not the same. None of them are. If I make them A, that'd be apples. This is bananas. And this is apple, bananas as a group. So if I have a bucket, and I have apples in it, and I have a bucket and I have bananas in it, and this bucket is for apples and bananas, there should be no bananas in here, there's no apples in here, and only if you have a combination can I add it. This will be a little further on, but this is what they're trying to get you to see, is keep the terms alike. They have to be exactly alike. One of the things I use for discussing this is we have dogs, cats, and elephants. We're not going to combine them. You can't combine them. Don't get confused because they put a D here, or 4C and 3E, that you can combine those. And really what they're doing is they're keeping them separate. I want only dogs in this pin. I only want cats. Get them separated, combine the terms. We're going to do it in a minute. And the elephants. I don't want any cats. If there's cats in the dog pen, I got to get them out. I can't do multiplication division till I have them all separated. So I can add and subtract. I can do add and subtract here, but I can't do multiplication and division because they're not all like terms. Get all the cats out of here, and once you go like, well, I've got the dogs here, I got the cats all here, and I got the elephants all over here, then we do this. This is what we do in a zoo. We don't count the animals till we got them all separated. If you don't have them separated, you can't do this, and I'll probably yell at you 1,000 times if you try to. Make sure you understand what's going to make algebra difficult. Well, instead of dogs, cats, and elephants, they might have pit bulls, terriers, and German shepherds. And this is going to get a little more confusing because put the dogs in here. Well, these are dogs, and these are dogs, and these are dogs. Now I'm in trouble. So that's what becomes classification. It's the same thing you do in science. It's easy at the high levels. The harder it gets is the more we do it. There's 400 types of monkeys, 300 kinds of snakes, and that's what becomes the trouble. Can you see the difference? If you can't see the difference between this they all look alike to you. It's all A's and B's. They're not. Every one of these is different. This has an A squared. This one has a B squared. Two separate things. This has an A all by itself. This has one AB. This has one A. Every one of these terms are not alike. This is different from all these, and they're all different from each other. Like, that's really hard to see. Yes, it is. Because you're like, well, they all have an A in them. They're still different. You cannot combine 3 of these with 2 of these. Now, right now, you're looking at going like, well, I can't tell the difference. I know, that's what you're going to be working on. What this does for you and for your little minds in algebra, like, why do we even bother to do this? For those who've been in my class, you'll know the picture. This is what your brain looks like. This is your brain. Yeah, they all look alike, sorry. And that's you trying to figure out life and everything else. So what algebra does better than most subject matters is it makes you think like this. Now, science is also trying to get you to think like that. History is also trying to get you to think like that. But math and algebra is very clear cut. There is an answer. A equals 2. It has to. In history, not necessarily. Science, a lot of wiggle room. But math is a very exact science, which means you don't have any choice. You either got it or you didn't. History, we have different opinions. Language arts, you have different ideas of writing, different backgrounds. Here, your background knowledge won't help you. So that's kind of what we're doing. That is algebra for really the next year or two. If you get this, it's not that big a deal. If you don't get it, oh boy, it can be a real big deal. So there's a few other things that can help on this, and I might add a video. I'll see how I feel. Make sure you have the basics, so go over these. Once you get these, it's not that difficult. It's staying in order. So I'm going to do what you would consider a difficult problem, and we'll see if you can stay with me on it. I don't do anything different, so I'm just going to do I don't even know how this is going to work out. I'm just doing it. Now this looks like kind of difficult, but first thing I'm going to do is combine the terms. So I need all the terms combined before I do anything. And actually, before I do anything, I go through and make it clear for myself. You won't have to do this for life, but you're going to have to do it maybe at first. So I want to go 4 over 1, this is exaggerating by the way, times m minus 6, which I'm going to box in as a negative 6, a positive 2, which I like to box in so I don't start doing all that, a negative 1m equals a negative 2, this is multiplication again, a negative 2m, and a positive 8. Now once again, do you have to do all that? No, I'm just doing it so you can see it. So I want to leave my m's alone, so I'm just going to rewrite that again. I'm going to just simplify it. So I need to get these combined. Well, it's 6 minus 2 is 4. The bigger sign is a negative, so I got negative 4. I'll continue on and write down everything else. 1m equals negative 2m positive 8. So do I have all my m's to one side? I've got one here, I got one here, and I got one here. They're not all to one side of my equal signs. So I'm not. Plus I have a number here, and I got a number over here, so they're not together. So let me do my numbers. So I'm going to put my 4m. Once again, I box my negative 4. I need to get rid of my negative 4. So I need the opposite. I need to get it to a 0. So if I put a positive 4, that gets me to a 0. So I have plus 0 minus m equals negative 2m positive 8, and I had a negative 4 to get, I had a positive 4 to get rid of this, so I get a positive 4 over here. And once again, so you don't spend doing the addition, subtraction, just put them like that. So I have 2 of my m's over here, I still have another one over here. Can't do anything yet but that. So I'm still in the addition, subtraction. Still in addition, subtraction. Please don't forget this. This is going to be really important because a lot of you are going to mess this up. So I need to get rid of this. Please do not multiply or divide. I'm not getting rid of the 2, I'm getting rid of the whole thing. So if I have a negative 2m, I need to add 2m because that gets me to a 0. If I do it over here, I'm going to put down 4m minus m and my plus 2m. And that equals my 8 and 4. 8 plus 4, we're going the same direction as 12. So what I have now is this. 4m minus m, that's a 1. I got 2. So I can do 4 plus 2 is 6 and a negative 1. I got a positive 6 and a negative 1 is going to be 5m equals 12. I'm going to bring that up to the top here. So I have 5m equals 12. Since I have my m to the side and I got all numbers to the side, I have got combined terms. Now, if I want to, which I need to do multiplication or division. Since what operation am I doing here? Well, it's multiplication because we know that. You will forget. Technically, what I have here is 5 over 1 multiplied by m equals 12. So to get rid of this, I need to have the opposite. I need to divide 1 and a 5. 5 times 5 is 5 times 5. I go across this way. 5 times 5, 5 over 5, times m is equal to 12. Since I divided by 5 there, I'm going to divide by 5 over here. This equals 1 m over 12 over 5. And that's going to be 2 and 2/5. M equals 2 and 2/5. Now some of these steps I'm exaggerating on because you're going even further than you need to when I'm doing some of these where I'm putting in the multiplication, but you have to understand that it's there. You have to understand the divisions here. If you don't get those, it's going to be more mass confusion. What looks like a difficult problem is the same steps. My equal signs are going to be pretty much straight down. I can do my positive and my negatives once I combine the terms. Oops. Then after I combine the terms, I can go, I guess I should put positive, negative up here. Then I can go to my multiplication, division. Sometimes it's multiplication, sometimes it's division. And I'll do one more problem on that just to kind of clarify it. Make sure you follow the steps. The problem with algebra, and this is what makes it so frustrating, is if you miss one step, you mess up with a big answer. If I want to go check my answer, I take my 2.25 and I put it here. And I'm not going to do the math for you, but 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 2, that makes 12, and it ends up 12. You can figure that out. It's going to be 12 over 5 times 5 over 1. The 5's cancel each other because they're dividing and ends up 12. There's other steps you're going to have to know. One of the problems with a lot of you that I've already noticed is you got 3 property things that help you. One is the associative property. You probably should look this up. I'm trying to cover like about a year of algebra in about 20 minutes. It's called the associative. Oh, I should spell it out too. You got the commutative. And distributive. Now, for some of you, it may be hard to believe, but you should have learned those like in 3rd or 4th grade. If you did not learn these, you probably should go back. The one you're probably going to use the most right now is this one, but the others will come involved. Their rules, they'll be with you for a long time. They make it easier. If you don't know them, it doesn't make it easier. Associative is just going to be A plus B is equal to B plus A. So if it makes it easier for you, when am I ever going to use this? You actually do. It just makes it easier sometimes when the problems are moved around. 2 other points I want to go over. So I'll go over the distributive. They're going to give you this. And they want you to distribute the 3 to the 8 and the 2. Once again, you're multiplying. This has a 1. Well, what am I multiplying? You're multiplying 3 times 1 and 3 times 2. Generally, what they tell you to do is you start doing the cascading fireworks, and you go like this. I'm not a big fan of that because we're going to get more of these, and it can get like a bunch of rainbows, and they'll be firing everywhere, the rockets, red glare, and all that stuff. So what I do is I just do it here. Straight multiplication. 3 times 1a. 3 times 1 is 3, and you have an a. This is 3 times 2, and it's a positive sign, and that's it. I don't do all this stuff. I just multiply these two, and then I put another 3 down because he's going to go for both of them, and I multiply these two, and you get this. Now what they'll do is they'll work the other way for you. They'll want to know, can you see this? You've got 3a plus 6. What can you take out of that? Well, I look at it and I go, well, 3 is a multiple of both, so I could take at least a 3. What's that leave? Well, if I take this 3 out, I divide by it by 1/3. and I'm left with A. If I divide this by 1/3, I'm just going to put division for right now. That leaves me with a 2. That's what I'm doing. When they say, what can you take out of it? What number can you divide it by? Remember, this is division. So what's the opposite of 3 over 1? It's 1 over 3. That gets me to a 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 1 is 3. I get to my 1. It's a never-ending battle of getting to 1s and 0s. Once I get to this is distributive property. The reason I tell you this is what you're going to run into this year, so get ready, is you're going to have this. And you're going to look at that and like, oh God. It's multiplication because they're right next to each other. Anytime something's right next to each other, I don't care if it's parentheses, I don't care if it's 3 in parentheses, and I don't care if it's 3 in a letter. Those are all multiplication. So we're going to do the same distributive property. Now what they'll tell you to do is they'll use the FOIL method. And when you hear this, start crying. We're going to take the first and go to the first. Then we're going to for the outside, because those are outside. Then we're going to go inside, and they'll do this, and then you'll do this. And you look at that, and you're like, what a mess. I would tell you to simplify it. I take the A, and I use the distributive property. I'm going to use A minus 2. Now, it's an extra step, and later on you might be able to get it, and I would tell you do whatever makes you feel comfortable. And you're going to do A minus 2. Now, this is multiplication. What am I multiplying? The 1 and the 1. The 4 and the 1. I'm multiplying. And you'll come out with numbers there, and then when you do it, you just combine them and you add them like normal. I'm not going to do that because you're going to get an A squared, and that's going to throw it off for right now. Squares don't, it doesn't mean anything, it's still a 1. This A squared here is still just one of these kind of guys. Just like this is one of those. Don't get all worried because they got a 2 up there. It's just another, it's a breed of dog. I think that's about everything for now. I did want to go over one other thing, and then this was it, is if you have a negative 3x, you can only have the x. We want it all by itself, and what we want is a positive 1x. Now, it's not going to be written like that. They're just going to say x. But you need to know it has to be positive. It's going to be a 1. So to get rid of this 3, if I'm multiplying, I need to divide, or pick the opposite. So opposite of 3 over 1, which is what this is 1 over negative 3. I have to do the same thing. Because if I use a 3 here, it's not going to come out to 1. I want a positive 1. So if I multiply across, it's going to be negative 3. I multiply across, it's going to be over a negative 3. And I got to my lovely 1 again. And it's 1x. Since 1x, 1 times 1x is 1, we kind of just forget it and we go with x, and I've got it out here. If you have a negative here, you've got to get rid of the whole thing. If the 1 is on the line and you have not combined like terms, and this causes confusion, if I have not combined like terms and I have x's on this side, I need to take the whole thing. This is a positive negative situation. That's the one that causes problems. And I'll give you one more example of that. These are two different issues. That's one kind of problem. But I can start doing my multiplication and division to get that to a 1. This is a completely different problem until you combine like terms. I'm not just moving the 5 until I have it over there. I'm moving the whole thing. It is just a negative positive situation, which means to get this to a 0. I'm not doing multiplication and division. I'm doing addition and subtraction. So if I'm going to do addition and subtraction, I need a negative 5x. A negative 5x. The whole thing, it's got to look exactly alike, except you're changing the sign. I got to bring that x with me, and that'll get me to a 0. Once I have it over here, and I have the negative 5, I can combine these and get negative 8x is equal to 9 is equal to 9. Now, since I've got all my x's and all my numbers to different sides, now I can use multiplication and division. And since I'm multiplying negative 8 over 1, I have to do a 1 over negative 8. And I'm going to be multiplying these guys. So when I get them, I get negative 8, because you multiply across. I hope everybody knows that. And I multiply across, and I get negative 8, and I get my precious 1. And then I get 1x. Since I divided on that side by negative 8, I need to divide on this side by negative 8. And that is algebra in a nutshell. That'll get you to Christmas. They're going to throw you all sorts of little curveballs. They're going to throw a lot of negative and positive numbers in. They're going to throw you parentheses around numbers. They're going to make you do the distributive property. They're going to make you undo the distributive property. To get this to a 1, I can divide by 1/4, and I can do it here, and that puts me back to x plus 2, and I took the 4 out of it. So we're going to go back and forth. They're going to double up on, eventually you'll get to where you have x squared, and you're like, now I'm really confused. Don't be too confused. And then they'll say 3x squared is one thing, and then they'll say, but 3x with parentheses is another thing. This is 3x squared. This is 3x times 3x. There's 2 of them. And when we're next to each other, it's multiplication. This is only x squared. This is the whole thing, and that creates another problem. So they're just going to throw little things at you where they put parentheses, and they're just little rules. But you're doing the same thing over and over again. If you're not paying attention to the rules, you'll mess it up. But the rules are easier to get. You just have to realize when we're multiplying, when we're trying to get opposites, what we're exactly doing. You have to know that we're doing a division. There's a step I left out, but I'm not going to do it today. And if you get confused with it, I'll put it up again. So that's basically it for as long as you need it. If you need any other help, the last thing you need to do, if you don't know this site, you are in serious trouble. If you go to every high quality school in the country, the first place they send their students is Khan Academy. If you get the assignment, whether it's like quadratic, if it's like quadratic equations, and you're not sure what you're doing, this gentleman who's probably in his 40s by now, but he started when he was 30s, went online and did about, I think he's got like over 2,000 videos of history, science, but mostly math that he did for his niece and nephew. If you do not know this, you are in a world of trouble. All the kids who do well in math, if you go to the other schools, are going to know Khan Academy. I've already asked several people here, and they have no clue. So if you need quadratic equations, he's got like a little 10-minute video like I'm doing now, wasting my time, because you could probably go see it at Khan Academy, and he does it 10 times better than me. You can watch it 1,000 times until you get it. You have to know what you're doing. If he's working on solving the equation, you have to know what it is. You can't just come and tell me or go like, well, I don't know, we're doing x's and stuff and parentheses. No, they got names. If you're doing distributive property, I butchered that. If you're doing distributive property, he has a video for it. He does it right. He talks you through it. Nice, pretty colors. It's like an overhead. You can watch it 20 times and get it. If you're just counting on teachers at school, you're in a lot of trouble. So I will go on Khan Academy and see some, but if you can't tell me what you're looking for, and by the way, the great thing about Khan Academy, oh, did that eliminate one of your excuses? I'm sorry. It is free. So you might have to stop on some of your Snapchat and Instagram and actually go there, look at the video 2 or 3 times, look at your work and see if any of this makes sense. He goes right on through algebra, geometry, advanced algebra, calculus, I think up to trig, and he will take you all the way through. If you're having troubles with other subject matter like science or anything like that, he has a bunch on those too, but mostly math is the big one because the rest of it you could probably get out of a book. If you have any questions, you can let me know. I'm posting this on YouTube as soon as I figure out how to do it. And that's about it. This is done as quickly as possible. I'm all over the place because I'm trying to get you as much info to get you through the next 2 weeks. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Good luck.